This is a story that happened a long time ago in my village, when I was a high school student about to take my final exam. I used to stay up until early morning to review my lessons because that was when the area where I lived was the quietest. I resolved to complete all of my homework before going to bed, but it always seemed to pile up like a mountain. When I realized I didn't have the energy to keep going, I sat back in my chair and rested for a few minutes. Many days had passed and I'd always studied until I was exhausted and my eyes couldn't open any longer. So I sat down at the table, intending to sleep for nearly 30 minutes in order to regain my energy. I was sleeping when I heard some loud noises outside that sounded like a trumpet and bride procession music. The music became increasingly louder as the group approached nearer to my house, making it impossible for me to sleep any longer. I started to feel uncomfortable and secretly blamed that family for having such a late-night wedding. At first, I considered returning to my desk and ignoring outside distractions in order to focus on my homework. But no matter how hard I tried, I was distracted by outside noises. Outside, the singing was like a magical power entering my mind, making it impossible for me to concentrate on my own affairs. This time, I resolved to focus with all my might, staring at the page in front of me, my mind ignoring the trumpets playing outside. But in the end, I couldn't take it any longer, so I slammed my fist on the table and sat up in rage. I drank a small sip of water to relax and then went to the windows, intending to wait for the bride to come to complain. I slowly opened the windows and began to look outside to see how far this procession had progressed. In the dark night, a large group of people and the shadow of a palanquin appeared from afar in the dense fog. I couldn't see the faces of anyone in the group because it was too dark and there was an overcast fog. But what drew my attention to this group of people was their unusual appearance. They walked and danced in strange movements. The scene in front of me began to make me wonder, fearful and curious. I had no idea if they were any of people in my village. After a while, the group stopped singing and simply blew the trumpet loudly. I began to feel helpless because I considered it as a joyful activity for other people's families. So I didn't want to interfere and instead sat in the house with curious eyes. After a while, the procession arrived at my house as well. I began to rise, intending to share my blessings on this group of people. But when the group began to appear clearly under the dim street lights, I was astounded to see each person's face. They were not normal humans. Their faces were also blurred, and they resembled demons from hell. Their skins were pale, their cheeks rosy, and their lips always smiled. Even worse, the flesh had all vanished, leaving only a few wrinkled pieces clinging to the concave bones. They were carrying the palanquin while grinning manically. The wind came out of nowhere and yanked open the palanquin's curtain, revealing the empty space inside. I panicked. I wanted to scream but couldn't. All I could do was stand still and watch the group in front of me. I knew they weren't normal people like me, so when they were just passing by, I turned inside the house, clutching my mouth and trembling. The trumpet was right next to my ear. I could clearly feel the bright blue eyes outside staring at me from inside the room. When I tried to look outside, not only did the man carrying the palanquin, but also the girl walking in the middle of the group was also staring at me with a ghostly expression. I shivered, every now and then not sure if it was from the cold running down my spine as the group passed by or because I was too scared. I took a deep breath and tried to look out the windows, just as the eyes on the other side met mine. I was startled and quickly hid behind the wall, dozens of confusing questions ringing in my head before going blank. I sat down on the ground, hugging my knees and shivering, feeling that the songs outside were the magic that was trying to fascinate me. I grimaced, gritted my teeth, and waited for the group to leave before standing up to assess the situation outside. In the hazy smoke, the procession of the palanquin had traveled a long distance by the end of the village. I had never taken my gaze away from them. I could clearly see the procession of people bringing that red palanquin to a dilapidated house that had long been abandoned. Despite the fact that the procession group had traveled a long distance, I could still hear the sound of the drums and trumpets. The group abruptly came to a halt in front of that abandoned house. The trumpet sound was also deafeningly quiet. The group stood motionless, surrounded by a gloomy atmosphere. After a few seconds, the group brought the palanquin inside and quietly left. When I looked at the house within the black scorch marks, I was taken aback by recalling the heartbreaking story that had occurred here. Not so long ago, this wooden house was the most well-known and spacious restaurant in my village. No one was unaware of it. On this day a few years ago, a big wedding was held at this restaurant. The atmosphere was very lively here. Guests had been eating and drinking in the restaurant for quite a long time. Everyone was anticipating the arrival of the bride for the ceremony. Both sides of the family were extremely busy. Congratulations could be heard throughout the restaurant, and the atmosphere was extremely lively at this time. By the middle of the party, the restaurant downstairs was filling up with black smoke. A man became frightened and ran upstairs. When he arrived, he quickly shouted, informing those present of the fire that was raging downstairs. After hearing that, the people at the party that day began to let go of their chopsticks, their mouths gaping at the panicking man in front of them. The black smoke from downstairs spread to the party's area as soon as the sentence ended, and the guests began to stir. Those present could see the deadly fire rising from the restaurant's window as if it wanted to burn down the entire establishment. Everyone began to stand up one by one, frantically looking for a way out. Loud screams rang throughout the restaurant, but no one could help them. The villagers who had also heard about the fire curiously ran over, standing below helplessly looking inside. Before the fire truck arrived, some people began using the most basic fire suppression methods in the hope of reducing the severity of the incident. However, the fire in the night transformed into a demon, quickly devouring both the restaurant and the people who were present. The fire burned into their bodies, consuming all those fleeting in the blink of an eye, and no one had a chance to escape. In the ocean of flame, the black shadows appearing by the upstairs windows begging for help, and then fell down. That image haunted the people of my village. The signboard for the restaurant was also set ablaze. The fire had been extinguished by dawn, but the memories associated with this restaurant had also been reduced to ashes. Fire trucks were parking along the road to the village that night, and no one dared to go out because they were so terrified. The village changed over time, becoming a busy street, but the restaurant remained as how it was after that night. I shivered in bed all night, unable to sleep, because the burned spirits in the fire that night kept haunting me. Every time I took a nap, those ghostly horror faces appeared in my dreams, worsening my health. Outside the windows, in particular, I always had the distinct impression that the group was still standing there, peering inside and calling my name. Every night after the entire village had fallen asleep, the sound of the trumpet and the image of the wedding procession to the burned-out restaurant appeared. Many people claimed to have seen the bride in the palanquin. She kept singing the wedding carol in the sorrow and pain. Many people said the bride was stunning, with a veil covering her face but allowing them to see her bright white eyes. The smoke from the restaurant suddenly spread every time the procession brought the palanquin into the restaurant, just like the fire scene that year. People in the village spread rumors about the procession group who died in the village. Since then, the restaurant has been deserted, and no one dared to approach and considered the ghost carrying the procession as an anecdote.